Yo, what is up, guys? Parlays have been big news recently, especially with this kid who had a $13 to win $270,000 parlay. It required 2 legs. Unfortunately, it lost. He needed the Oilers to win the Stanley Cup and the Thunder to win the NBA Finals. But anyways, a bunch of people on social media were talking about here's how he should hedge it. Also, he should cash out. So the point of this video is to explain how can you hedge your parlays in an optimal way. So that's what we're going to be discussing, how to hedge a parlay. And then the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through why in general it's a bad idea to hedge. Okay, that's what we're going to be going through in this video. Obviously, it's not always a bad idea to hedge. For example, this is a life-changing amount of money. He only bet $13 and he could cash it out for $39,000 or even possibly hedge it for $40,000, $50,000. That's a life-changing amount of money. It's worth hedging, guaranteeing a risk-free profit. However, if you're hedging every single parlay, that's going to be a losing strategy long-term, and I'm going to show you why. So let's start off with a really simple example, okay? This is a 2-pick NBA WNBA parlay, and let's just say the first leg wins over 222 half points in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. And for whatever reason, you're like, I actually don't want to risk it. I want to hedge and lock in a risk-free profit. So what you can do is just take the opposite outcome of Fever plus 4.5, which would be the Minnesota Lynx minus 4.5. If the first leg of your parlay wins, you're essentially rocking. You essentially have on a straight bet, Fever plus 4.5 at plus 264 odds, right? You basically just have that straight bet at your parlay's odds. So what you can do is you can just use a hedge calculator. You can get the Lynx at minus 110 odds currently on FanDuel if you want to hedge on the same sportsbook. Granted, it's probably a good idea to use OddsJam, line shop, and see if you can get a better price. For example, on DraftKings right now, you could get the Lynx actually at a slightly better line, minus 4, and kind of work into a middle. So there's ways to optimize this, but let's just say you only use one sportsbook. You bet this on the parlay on FanDuel, you want to hedge on FanDuel. What you can do is just use a hedge calculator. You have $5 on the Fever plus 4.5 at plus 264. You can get Lynx minus 4.5 at minus 110 odds. And what this calculator tells you is to bet $9.53 on the Lynx at minus 4.5 at minus 110 odds. And you're going to guarantee a risk-free profit of $367. So you're taking off all your risk, regardless of who wins tomorrow. If the Fever cover, if the Lynx cover, just using a simple hedge calculator, you're gonna make $367 profit. That sounds pretty good. But now let's get into the negatives of hedging, right? Obviously, making $367 risk-free profit sounds good, but you have to remember the first bet won. We won our over 222 half in the Thunder game. So for most sports bettors who don't have an edge, you're gonna win about 50% of your over-unders, and you're gonna lose about 50% of your over-unders, right? Like most sports bettors don't have an edge, so these over-unders and these point spreads at minus 110, minus 110 odds, most people are winning these about 50% of the time. So if you think about it, that's not particularly good to hedge to only make $367 profit. Granted, I did say there may be other sports books that are offering better odds. So maybe you can increase your risk-free profit from $367 to like $5. But if you think about it, 50% of the time, the first leg of your parlay is gonna win. And then you can hedge for $367 risk-free profit. The other 50% of the time, you're gonna lose the first bet in your parlay and you're down $5. So that's a horrible trade, right? Like, half the time, you lose the first leg of your parlay, you're down $5. The other 50% of the time, you hedge and you make $367. But over the course of the long run, if you don't have an edge, for every 2 parlays you bet, you're gonna lose 5 when the first leg loses. You're gonna make $367 when the first leg wins. You're down $1.33, which is a lot if you consider that your bet size was only $5. For every $10 you bet, every 2 parlays. So for every $10 you bet, you're losing $1.33. That's a negative 13.3% ROI from hedging after the first leg of your parlay wins for 2-pick parlays. Again, you can line shop, optimize this a bit, but that's why hedging is kind of bad. Sportsbooks set these spread odds at -110, where you have to bet 110 to win just 100. So when you're hedging all of your parlays after the first couple legs win, you already paid the juice when you bet the parlay. When you bet the hedge bet, you're paying the juice again. You're paying the vig, the hold, right? Like you're betting into the juice again, which means you're gonna lose even more money long term by hedging your parlays. You're gonna have a worse ROI sports betting. So hedging a 2-pick parlay is very simple. I mean, it's not that complicated. It gets more complicated for multi-way markets. So if we go back to this crazy parlay this kid had, I actually have a full YouTube video on my personal YouTube channel, Alex Monahan, breaking down the math. DraftKings was offering him a cash out of $40,000, which was bad by $20,000, negative EV by $20,000 at the time before the Oilers Game 6 started, where they ended up losing anyway. So obviously in hindsight, cashing out would have been smart. But what I mean to say is DraftKings was offering him a cash out of $40,000, but the fair cash out would have been $60,000. And by just betting on the opposite outcomes, he actually could have guaranteed a higher profit. He could have guaranteed a higher profit just by hedging and betting the Panthers and the Pacers. So I actually used ChatGPT to kind of calculate the numbers, but then I was like, that's crazy, right? Most people don't have $230,000 to hedge a parlay, which is kind of one of the other downsides of hedging. Is, as I explained in the last clip, hedging is usually negative EV because you're paying the juice again. You keep paying the juice more and more, your ROI is going to get worse and worse as a sports bettor. You're going to lose more and more money. However, obviously, when you have a 13 to win 270K parlay, which is a life-changing amount of money, you want to hedge. But the sportsbook kind of has you stuck because most people don't have $230,000 laying around to hedge, which is basically why, for most people, if you do have a life-changing parlay, the cash out button is the only realistic option. However, what I wanted to go through is how can you hedge, let's say a 4-leg parlay, where the first 2 legs you have already won. So we can go back to FanDuel and I'll go through an example. And it's honestly pretty simple to do. ChatGPT is really good for this type of stuff. ChatGPT is not good at knowing the real-time odds. It's not good with real-time data. However, in terms of calculating hedge stakes, it's incredible. So let's go back to FanDuel and go through a 4-pick parlay, because obviously things start to get more complicated if you have more legs in your parlay that haven't won. So here we have a 4-pick parlay, and again, it's really easy to hedge a parlay if the first 3 legs have won. So let's say the first 3 legs have won. You want to hedge with links -4.5 at -110 odds on FanDuel. Again, ideally you get -4 on DraftKings, or you line shop with OddsJam to get a better price. But let's just say, for the sake of example, you only want to use FanDuel. Basically, if the first 3 legs have won, you just have $5 on a straight bet, Fever +4.5, at +1228 odds. So once again, just like initially, you can use a little hedge calculator that's going to tell you to bet 34.78 on the links -4.5 at -110, and you'll guarantee a profit of 26.62. Really easy to do. Again, I wouldn't recommend this, especially if you're not line shopping and getting the best line, because all you're doing is you're paying the juice again. And long term, if you're constantly hedging parlays, that's going to lose you even more money. It's going to eat into your ROI. However, let's say your first 2 legs have won, right? Only your first 2 legs. You're 2 for 4 on your parlay. Now, hedging gets more complicated. What you need to do is bet every other possible outcome. So it's going to be 3 other parlays. Okay, you have to bet 3 other parlays to hedge. Again, this is not a winning strategy because you keep paying the juice more and more and more. But let's say you say, no, I need to hedge this. I only use FanDuel. I'm 2 for 4 on my parlay. I don't feel great about the other legs. How can I hedge? You can use ChatGPT, which is going to tell you to place 3 other hedge parlays on all of the other possible outcomes. So what I mean by that is currently I have aces +4 and fever +4.5. But if there's 2 games, then there's 4 possible outcomes, right? Aces cover and fever cover, aces cover, links cover, storm cover, fever cover, storm cover, links cover. So you need to bet all of those other outcomes. So for example, one of your hedge parlays would be storm -4, fever +4.5. That would be one of your hedge parlays. And what ChatGPT will tell you, ChatGPT is amazing for this type of stuff, is to bet 15.38 on each of the other 3 parlays, betting each possible combination, and you are going to guarantee a risk-free profit of $20.26. Again, this is not a winning strategy, but if you wanted to, that's how you would hedge. Now, I would like to mention there are times where hedging is actually plus EV. So for example, arbitrage betting is a super popular strategy. You'll see tons of people talking about arbitrage on social media. And arbitrage is basically just when 2 sportsbooks have such different odds that you can hedge to guarantee a risk-free profit. Granted, it's on straight bets, but the point is there can be times where hedging is plus EV. There can be times where you're not getting links -4.5 at a horrible price. Maybe there's a promo offering links -4.5 at +120. Then you're actually hedging and it's plus EV. You're not paying the juice again. You got a positive ROI line, a plus EV bet, not a negative EV hedge. And hedging is actually plus EV. And arbitrage is the simplest example, right? Arbitrage, when 2 books, such different odds, you can bet the over, under, guarantee a risk-free profit. So yesterday I was teaching my friend Clara sports betting. I have a full-length video on that on my personal YouTube channel, Alex Monahan. And I showed her arbitrage. We were able to hit this arbitrage bet on a WNBA player prop, Copper, and guarantee her a risk-free profit of $30, betting equal and opposite outcomes on FanDuel and Hard Rock because they had such different odds. So sometimes hedging is actually the right decision. It's plus EV, it's profitable. But to kind of recap this video, in general, for most people, you should not be hedging your parlays, right? Because you're just going to be paying the juice over and over and over again. If you do decide to hedge your parlays, you should make sure you're getting the best possible line, the best possible odds. Ideally, you get a plus EV hedge. Ideally, we could get a positive ROI price on links -4.5 if we decide to hedge that parlay. And the final thing is when you do have a life-changing amount of money, unfortunately, you may be stuck with only the cash out button because as we went through with that crazy parlay, you would need hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to hedge this parlay to turn 13 into 270K, which obviously isn't really realistic. In general, between cash out and hedging is going to be much more profitable, especially if you're line shopping, getting the best possible odds. Cash outs are usually unprofitable by 20%, 30%, which is exactly what I said. DraftKings was offering this kid a $40,000 cash out. It's a life-changing amount of money. I'm not saying he should not cash out. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the fair cash out, what they truly should have been giving him to be fair, is $60,000 if you go through the math. And again, I have a video on my YouTube channel breaking that down. But that's how you hedge parlays, everything you need to know about it. If you have questions, comment down below. I love making sports betting content, so let me know other video ideas. And again, thanks so much for your time.